So I'll take you through some pictures of our trip. We've got Jill and Peter in the audience out there. So if I do anything wrong or say anything wrong, Jill and Peter will let me know. Hi there, both of you. Just be aware that I'm much more an amateur grower than a professional. And if anybody wants to make any corrections to this as we go, feel free. So, lily hunting. This is our merry band on day one. We very quickly realised that we were going to have an enormous amount of fun looking at the botany in the Greek mountains. So this is our very first morning out with a gentle start. So there was only a group of 6 of us. You can see 5 in the picture there. And of course, not me, because I'm behind the camera. And this is Chris here. Hopefully you can see him. And this is this is how we saw him quite a lot of the time. So he was so enthusiastic. He was like a Labrador rushing off in front of us. So he's photographing something, I know not what's there. While we were away, we saw 279 plants in flower that were recorded and identified, which is a huge number, really. And you'll see some of them here. So the first thing we saw very early on was rhodopeum. Here it is with Chris very excited in the bracken, having found the stand that he was looking for early on. We were supposed to have a guide who was going to identify where they were, but as it was, they were not available. And so Chris found them all on his own. And here we are a little bit closer. You can see the damage on the leaves there, Janos. I'm guessing that's lily beetle on this first plant that we're seeing. And this is one growing on the other side of the road. It's not a very close picture, but actually the bulb is exposed there. And it looks as if they've come down the bank and then rooted into a new area. It was a good, strong plant. So obviously avoiding replant problems because it had travelled. And here's Chris taking a picture, not of a lily. And you'll see what it is in a minute. And this is not Orobanche. We saw a lot of Orobanche. I'd never seen one before the trip, but this is Orobanche gracilis. You can find this on Time, I think. It's the Orobanches are a real pest. Janos probably knows a lot more than me on all sorts of crops across the world, and they've all got various hosts that they live on. And there it is again. And then we saw some more rhodopeum. Here's a very nice one growing up on the slope. We were really pleased to see these. The Lily Group went in 2017 and didn't see this particular plant or this particular lily. In fact, the lilies we saw this time complemented the earlier trip in 2017, which is interesting. Just gone at a different time of year, I guess. And there it is again. And again, doesn't seem to be very much damage on the foliage there, actually. And that's Jill on the bank, giving us some feeling of scale. She's up there quite high, looking at the lilies, and you'll see here the road is below. So you can see the minibus, the top of the minibus. So it's a really quite steep slope, really quite perilous up there. You've got to be careful not to be slithering down.
Ruth, excuse me for interrupting. Can you just say a few things about what do you feel when you see these lilies? You know, when I go lily hunting, I just get euphoric about, yes. I can't believe this is happening to me. Like I physically feel for these lilies, or I internalize that. So can you speak to that? Like, what have you noticed the other people, or what have you felt? I mean, people are a little bit shy to expose that kind of vulnerability. But I'm just interested in, is everybody feel like me, or am I just weird?
No, you're not weird. You'd have seen 6 people plus Chris very excited to see, particularly these lilies, because they are really quite sparsely documented in the area. And to see them at this stage, because they don't last long, do they? And that's the issue, really. So it is quite exciting. Hence, you've got quite a lot of pictures here. So, and there we are again. And then we move away from lilies. You'll see a lot of pictures of a lot of different other plants. This is an incredible dracunculus that Jill actually spotted from the minibus as we were going along. There was a screech from the back and she said, "What's that?" And we went and had a look, and an incredible dracunculus in flower. You can see the size of it because Jill's standing there looking at it. So it's going up right the way almost to her shoulders, isn't it? It was a remarkable plant. And there it is again. And I have to apologise because the presentation that's come up is the one without the names. So I'm going to have to try and remember. This is the tway blades here or is it the bird's nest orchid? I think we've got here. It's very frustrating having the wrong presentation on the computer because the names are all on the other presentation. And then this is Mount Phalacron that we went up, and you'll see lots more plants. And this is what Chris called the beauty slope, and you'll see in a minute a lot of plants, not lilies, I have to say, but we've got a lot of linum all over the slope here. And then globularia cordifolia and a little white anthellis there. And then some very nice anosma, which he wasn't able to identify. And a lovely orchid, a neotinia, that's tridentata. We saw lots of orchids while we were away. More linum and more neotinia. And even more neotinia. And then very nice helianthemum and onobrichis there. And that's a lovely helianthemum. And there's Chris taking some photographs here of a very nice patch of Achillea. So that's Achillea aggeratifolia. And these are pictures that I took, so you can see it up close and then farther away. That's the same clump 3 times. We spent a very long time on this slope, which smelt beautiful and was covered in bees, and was quite an impressive sight. You look at some of the plants and they're clearly established over a very long period. And there was not a soul up there apart from us. So I think 2 guys that were hiking, and that was it, totally deserted. And that was our experience over all the sites where we were. There was really only us. And then higher up into the mountain here, we're doing a little bit more walking. And some more lovely globularia. And I don't know what the little papery flower with it is. So if anybody recognises that, I'd be very grateful. And more here. And Geranium macarizum. That's growing on the other side of the slope. Slightly richer soil here, I think. you can see you're getting a sort of limestone pavement effect here, which was the case really, I think, in pretty much all the locations that you'll see. And there we are again. You've got some more Orobanche and a very nice Muscari Camosa. And this is lunch. Lunch was like this every day. So it was lunch with a view, just piled out of the transport. Sometimes we had a bench and sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we sat on the ground, which at our age is challenging, but we did manage it and we got up again. So yes, very nice al fresco lunch. This was quite civilized really, because we got a cover. Not that we needed it, not even for shade really. Now here we have one that got away, so as to speak. This is Lilium martigam catinii, if I pronounce that right, and it's in bud. We walked quite a long way to look at them in flower, but we couldn't find them in flower. The previous group in 2017, if you look at the newsletter, Duncan Coombs did a write-up and they did see this in flower when they went, obviously at a slightly different time. Beautiful buds, very sort of fluffy, aren't they? So
has anyone identified that as being Catania? Because
I believe so.
A dark stem.
Sorry, say again.
It doesn't have a dark stem.
Well, yes, you've got a point there, and I'm not an expert. So it might be worth us just checking back with Chris and with with Chris really, because he was on the previous trip. So, but that's what I believe it was. So.
Thank you.
And then this is leaving Drama. Well, actually, it's a little village just outside Drama. We didn't stay actually in Drama. I have to confess, I was utterly lost a lot of the time in terms of where we were, because we were indeed in very pretty remote locations, really. And the view from our accommodation. The road went up the mountain and then just stopped. Now, in transit, we visited a lovely stand of Lilium candidum, which is here, growing in a really interesting place, just off a stretch of road on an escarpment, really. And most people wouldn't even know it was there, probably. They'd just go zooming by. So it involved quite a scramble up the slope. There was a lily beetle on this group as well, I'm sorry to say. In fact, we might even see a lily beetle in a minute. So you can see we're on the top of the escarpment and they're growing in between the pockets between the rocks there on the pavement, and the road's down at the bottom there on the left. So quite a steep climb, and they obviously get very, very, very good drainage up there. I don't think many of us could replicate that if we're growing on a domestic basis. And there they are again. You can see they're growing in with all sorts of scrubby items. And there you have, on the top of that flower, you'll see a lily beetle. I don't think I knew it was there when I took the photograph. So I think the interesting question is how much damage is so much beetle doing to these populations of lilies? Because surely with the amount of eating they're doing without any real control, they're making the parent plants quite a lot weaker, I would have thought. And we're moving on. I think that's Presper Lakes. I think we're heading to, and Jill might correct me if she remembers, we're heading to look for another population of, a population of Urbanicum, which we didn't find. A lot of time looking for lilies in the wild seems to involve a lot of walking, and then you can't find them, or you can't find them open. But one thing that Chris was keen for us to see is this. You're looking at Geum coccineum there, and there's a whole valley full of Geum coccineum. He was very excited about it. Oh, we also saw Geranium palustris there. A bit of slug damage by the looks of it. It was a very wet location, so I'm sure there were a lot of slugs. And there's Chris in the valley. You can see there's absolutely masses of veratrum, probably Veratrum album, growing in the valley, along with the Geum. It's really, really wet and squelchy there. And interestingly, the veratrum actually, if you can see, it hasn't got a huge amount of damage on it from slugs. You'd have thought there would have been, but maybe it was too wet for that. And quite a lot of flies in that area as well. Again, I no doubt connected to the amount of moisture. Oh, and the cattle that are around. But here's the Geum, which is rather lovely, isn't it? There it is again. Absolutely spectacular. And with the veratrum. Would have been nice to see the veratrum in flower. And we're heading up the mountain. In fact, I think that's a little spot of snow you can see in the distance, that white splodge. And we're going up there. But we've seen this Selenioptera purpureum, and that's a dactyriza. And now we're up towards the top. Very often we were up near ski centres with nothing going on, of course, because the skiing season's finished. It's interesting to think that up here is busy in the winter and all the plants are asleep underneath. I think that's Antenaria, she says. And we're right on the top. Absolutely stunning up there. A lovely dianthus. And there's my husband making a bit of scale and no doubt looking at something down at his feet there. He's not actually dying from being out of breath, which you could say he looks like. And surprisingly, a few veratrum managing to grow right on the top. It must be fairly wet up there. And a stunning gentian, and this is just the amount of homework that had been done beforehand. Before we'd done our trip, Chris had been out and done a recce in most of the areas where we were going to be. So he already knew where this plant was, and there was only one of them. So that he could be sure that in a whole mountain we actually got to see it, which is pretty impressive, really. And there's what's left of the snow. That was the only patch we saw, but we're there the end of June, so. And the view over the top. And we'll ignore the van because the van was taken out of the presentation at Madeline's request. It was a better presentation, Madeline, so I apologise.
No, not at all.
And here we're looking for Lilium albanicum. And we found plants in bud, but we haven't found anything in flower yet. So we're walking on quite a long way to try and find these actually open. We must have done, well, probably half an hour, 45 minutes, at which point Chris deposited us on a rock and disappeared for another half an hour to go and see if he could find some that were actually, not in bud, but were actually open. So when we finally reached the point where we thought he wasn't going to come back and wondered if we were going to sit on top of the mountain forever, he suddenly reappeared and said, no, not found any yet. So we turned around to retrace our steps and we found some. We passed a rocky promontory on the way up, which Chris had sussed out because it was through a huge stand of stinging nettles, amongst other things. And he said he hadn't found any plants open on that promontory, but he went back to have another look on the way back down. And here they are, just starting to open. There we are again. I didn't see any beetle on this population, which is interesting. It was, I suppose, a little bit isolated. You'll see in a minute where the population was, but the beetle flies a long way. That looks like a shield bug on that one, doesn't it? That one's a little bit more open than the rest. And there weren't very many of them, really. This is where they were. In fact, you can't see them. I don't think any of the yellow flowers you can see on the top of there are the lilies. They're actually beyond the rise. So you'll see a bit more in a minute. So now we're backtracking. And that's Clive coming back along the ridge, and they are at the end of the ridge going down. So they really were quite a long way. And that's another picnic. That's a picnic without anything to sit on, that one. It's a spectacular place to sit and have lunch. And we then moved on to Agios Germanus, which is where the previous, the 2017 trip also stopped. Very nice accommodation there. Very pretty little village, just nestled in the mountains. This is in an area where there's a huge amount of runner beans that are grown, or I'm not sure if they're runner beans or if they're actually sort of, I think they eat the beans as well as the pods, but yes, we're very close to, gosh, yes, ignore me. And then we moved on, and this is an incredible stand of Gladiola imbricatus, I think it is, in the field here. Absolutely, you don't get a feeling from these pictures of how many thousands there really were. It's better on video, but I hadn't got the technological confidence to try and show you a video. And there they are. And now we're up high, and we're looking for, what are we looking for? Aha! We're looking for orchids, Dactyriza. This was interesting. Thinking about replant disease, this little stand here was in an area where they'd done some road works. I don't know if you can see, between my poor husband's feet, you can actually see the plate which has gone into the ground. They've put in a new pole. So they've done a lot of disturbance here. And this Dactyriza, which is a magnificent specimen, is growing in a disturbed soil. So it's quite interesting, isn't it? Oh gosh, and this is the lizard orchid, and I won't tell you the botanical name because I can't pronounce it, especially when it's not written on the slide for me. It's supposed to spell like goats.
It's called Gymnadenia.
Thank you very much, Janos.
And the green flower is Paronychia cephalotus. I put the name in the chat.
Thank you. That's magic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This was a very extensive stand of this, just in a lay-by. So I think, again, Chris probably knew they were there, which makes all the difference, because I'm sure 9 out of 10 people drive past and don't even notice them. An absolute monster to photograph, but it was just an incredible plant. There it is again. I didn't smell it smelling like goats, but apparently it's supposed to. So our last destination was the Vikos Gorge. So anybody who hasn't been, this is it. It was my first visit there. It's somewhere I'd always wanted to go, and it didn't fail to impress me. It was wonderful. There it is. It's just immense. It really is. And we got some flowers here. That's a lovely, that's campanula. I think it's racemosissima, which is just lovely. And this is another Orobanche. This is Orobanche. This is Ramosa, I think. And on the right, this is a lily in bud. I think it's Chalcedonicum. We went looking for martagon. Martagon is another lily that got away. There's a valley which is actually quite close to the road, which should have been full of martagon lilies. Not the kind of location you'd make a mistake over. And there wasn't a single lily to be seen. Not one. Nothing. Which was really rather surprising. There'd been a lot of stock had gone through the area, so there was some kind of pens on the top of the slope. So the stock had been coming up and down through the valley. But you'd have still thought that some of the lily might have survived on the edges, which also led us to wonder whether they'd actually been taken, because for them to completely have vanished was, you know, well, it was sad, unless it's disease, of course, which I suppose it could have been. But that was a bit of a disaster because we were at the end of the trip. So we hadn't, you know, this was supposed to be the place where we absolutely certainly would have seen lily and martagon, and we didn't. But as I say, there was Chalcedonicum up on the hill. Oh, and this beautiful Ramonda serpica, which was flowering possibly a little bit on the late side, bearing in mind we're at the end of June, but it was, as you can see, a damp, cool valley. And that's on the edge, exactly where the martagon should have been. And a final picnic. And then just a look at some of the bridges in the Vikos Gorge, which are very scenic. This is Bubon macedonicum. And we've got some more Lilium candidum growing up on the cliffs. In the middle there, you can see those little, what look like little white handkerchiefs are actually Lilium martagon growing actually in the cliff. They're certainly safe from being harvested by anybody. You wouldn't get up there easily, I have to say. Doesn't mean they're safe from the lily beetle, though, as well, because this population had beetle damage as well. You get a good feeling for the kind of location where they're happy. I shall have to build a big limestone cliff in the garden if I want to grow them, I think. And I think we're just growing towards the end. There we are. We're just admiring the view. So it was a super trip. And I should say thank you to George and the Lily Group for having spoken to Chris and persuaded him to run it. It was very, very enjoyable. He's running 2 more Lily trips next year, one to California and one to Japan. He says the Japanese trip is involves more genera. He's hoping to see 12 when he goes to Japan. But certainly well worth it. You can see that, I mean, that's only a fraction of the plants that we saw. Otherwise, we'd be here all week to look at all 279 of them. And we had a marvellous time.